one guy who is a very excellent weapon in an NFL offense, DeAndre Hopkins, and we've been curious about what went wrong in Houston to cause the Texans to trade him away on a deal that universally has been regarded as a bad deal for the Texans. Think about it, Chris. Nobody agrees on anything in this day and age. Everyone agrees the Texans got screwed in the DeAndre Hopkins deal. So what went on? Michael Irvin was on ESPN's First Take earlier today, and he said he spoke to DeAndre Hopkins, and among other things, Hopkins was offended by some things that Coach Bill O'Brien had said to him, called him in for a meeting individually, said, I haven't had to have a meeting like this since Aaron Hernandez, which is a hell of a name to invoke, made comments about DeAndre Hopkins having multiple baby mamas. I mean, it just sounds like this is something that's been percolating for a while. We've had this conversation, Chris, that last year Bill O'Brien wanted to trade DeAndre Hopkins. Former GM Brien Gain did not.
Right.
And they held on to him for another year. But, man, this sounds poisonous. Now, I'm seeing that DeAndre Hopkins is claiming that Michael Irvin is blowing things out of proportion. Shocker, Michael Irvin is not a reliable scrivener and relayer of factual information from a phone call. And it could be that Hopkins doesn't want to have that that label on him of being a troublemaker per se.
Yep.
But look, something happened to cause the Texans to cut and run the way they did and take what seems like a hell of a lot less than they could have gotten for one of the best receivers in the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been hearing about it. I mean, to what you said, you're right. I mean, we've been hearing about this for a year. I mean, maybe more than that, really, about, there's not a cohesiveness there between the two. First off, I know DeAndre Hopkins. I've had him on my podcast, have hung out with him for a day in New York City, did all that. I love him. I really do. I mean, I think he's a competitor. He's a good person. He's fearless. I really do. Bill O'Brien, he's an Army general, and he's New England-ish that way. So he's never easy on anybody. I don't necessarily like those things that you hear that Billy O'Brien might have said to DeAndre Hopkins. I can certainly see that offending any player, let alone one of your stars on your football team. I will say this, though. I don't think that the Houston Texans got fleeced in this deal as much as everybody's trying to make it out to be. Listen, if your evaluation and you don't think DeAndre Hopkins is worth being paid $22 million a year, and then also your evaluation takes you to think, ooh, I like what I see on film from David Johnson, and I think he's still a top-tier running back in football, and you got a second-round pick. I know it's not perfect, but I think the ultimate thing here, more than anything, where the Texans knew they were going to lose leverage, and maybe they had a sense it was going to happen this offseason, that Hopkins was going to draw a line in the sand and be like, I'm not coming back until I get $22 million a year. And for that, then it's not necessarily that bad of a trade altogether. And, Mike, we hit on this the other day, too. We got to keep in mind, I mean, we know Patrick Mahomes is going to sign a new contract here soon. Deshaun Watson is the next guy up. I mean, he's in a command. If Deshaun Watson was in the contract negotiations right now, I would have no problem going, make Deshaun Watson the highest paid player in the history of football. That's what kind of talent he is. I mean, he's just about to hit the prime of his career, too. The only guy you can look here right now and just go, ooh, maybe they have a brighter future to me is Patrick Mahomes. Other than that, he's a superstar. So they had to balance that out, and I think that's why it might not look as good to the public, but I don't think it's as bad as everybody's trying to make it to be, at least in my opinion.
And the window is as open for Deshaun Watson to get his new deal as it is for Patrick Mahomes. And nobody's talking about that. And, the Texans have a mixed history of how they handle their first-round picks who become star players when it's time to pony up the cash. J.J. Watt got his second contract after 3 seasons. Jadeveon Clowney never got his. Deshaun Watson may have to wait another year, but you're right. You can't give DeAndre Hopkins Julio Jones money. By the way, Hopkins and Jones represented by the same agency, CAA. You can't give him Julio Jones money if you're getting ready to pay Watson. And as we said earlier in the week in Arizona, they're 2 years away from Kyler Murray even being in a position to expect a new contract. So, there's a report that the Eagles considered Hopkins, but he wants too much money.
See?
The Patriots were part of the conversation, and I think anyone who trades for him knows you're signing on to a problem contractually if you're not ready to pay him what he wants.
That's right.
And I think the Cardinals they wouldn't have done the deal. So you're right, that's part of this. You're getting rid of a headache financially.
Yeah.
And if you're also getting rid of a headache for the head coach, right or wrong,
Right.
if Bill O'Brien has decided this isn't one of my guys and it's a negative presence in the locker room that is working against what I'm trying to do, then you got to move on.
Yeah.
But still, it is amazing to me. See, here's the problem. This is where PR comes into play, Chris.
Right.
If you've got that message to send and you're the Texans, you better get that message out there. Otherwise, everybody's going to look at it and say, Billy O doesn't know what the hell he's doing. He keeps getting fleeced on all of these trades. At some point, and look, I respect a guy who doesn't give a crap.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to give a crap because at some point, perception is reality. And the perception is that Bill O'Brien is so far over his skis as a GM, he doesn't even know he's got skis on. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, listen, I understand that. I get where people are being critical there. And you know, also, too, we just got to remember, you're right. You got to respect Billy O because he's one of those guys that he doesn't give a crap. You're right. It's dangerous to play that game this day and age because you're right. The perception does become reality. But he's a New England guy. And as we know, just like Belichick, they just don't give a damn what the rest of the world thinks. They're convicted in their studies, their knowledge, everything there. We know he's a tough SOB, Billy O. He really is. He's a no-nonsense, in-your-face football coach. I really respect that about him. And, yeah, we'll see what he's made of as GM. I know one thing. He's a damn good head coach. That's the one thing I know. You know, he went to the playoffs with some quarterbacks the last few years where I just go, damn, these guys aren't even in football anymore. These guys aren't worth a damn. And he took the team to the playoffs still. So, you know, I don't want to be too critical, but, yeah, I hear people's concerns with the Clowney trade, the Hopkins trade. I understand how that could be hard to swallow for Texans fans.
And see, that's the challenge. If you're going to be the GM and you don't have any pelts on the wall and or pellets on the horse, you better care what people think.
Yeah.
And you better control the narrative or the narrative controls you. And you're not Bill Belichick yet, Billy O, because you haven't won anything. If you
That's
want
right.
something, you can not care. But I'm telling you, Bill O'Brien, if you're watching this, I want you to succeed. You're not going to succeed if you sit back and let the story carry you. You've got to carry the story.
Agreed. That's part of the game in the NFL, as we all know. And you're right. There's only one guy in football that can get away with it right now, and he's up in New England with the initials BB. Yep, he can do it. He can treat us all like jerks, tell us to shut up, give us no answer. It doesn't matter because the pellets are on the horse with him. He's got, 6 of them and a bunch of other things to go along with it to say, hey, screw you. None of you know as much as I do, so F off.
and look at it this way. I mean, he basically stiff-armed Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And nobody's saying boo about it.
No.
And it's clear that Belichick didn't want him. Now, Belichick didn't come out and say he didn't want him, but the circumstances point to Tom Brady realizing this guy doesn't want me, I'm going to leave. And no one's going to criticize Bill Belichick for it because he's got the rings. You can be that way when you've got the rings.
That's
when
right.
you don't, you better worry about what people are saying, and you better do what you can to convince them otherwise, or the narrative locks in, and it will contribute to your downfall if you don't win.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.